The last time we saw the OKC Thunder in the playoffs was in the Orlando bubble, where a team led by Chris Paul nearly knocked out the Harden and Westbrook era Rockets. The last time we saw a playoff game in OKC, Westbrook was on their team, as well as MVP candidate Paul George in the infamous Damian Lillard series. For a lot of these players on the current Thunder, last night was a playoff debut. And for Shai, it was his first time heading into a playoff series as the head honcho. Everyone was eager to see how this young team would respond to a new challenge, and Game 1 came down to the final buzzer. Priority number 1 for the Pelicans was to slow the game down. OKC thrives in transition, and by getting back, they could take them out of their comfort zone. This one leads to a steal for Herb Jones, and Herb is a pretty elite transition scorer himself, although Chet Holmgren appears to have an answer for that. The problem with making this a half-court game is that the Thunder have the third most efficient half-court offense in the NBA, scoring 1.09 points per possession, in large part thanks to having one of the game's most surgical creators. Here, Shai posts up a much smaller McCollum, draws 2, and kicks it to Chet, who's got all the time in the world to set up a 3. On this next one, he again gets the matchup with CJ, so he's going to attack right off the catch before a double can even get there and set up his signature bump mid-range jumper. Shai's ability to get into the defense seemingly at will has turned him into one of the game's most prominent advantage creators. And while OKC led the NBA in three-point percentage this season, that didn't look like the case early in Game 1. Call it shooting luck, call it lack of experience or playoff jitters, but shots that they normally make just weren't falling. One staple in their attack are these flare screens in early offense for Chet. Valanciunas doesn't even attempt to get a hand up, and it's a really bad miss anyways. Another go-to for them has been the pick and pop. Shai puts so much pressure on that big as a slasher and gets the ball to Chet with perfect timing, but these long-range jumpers simply weren't dropping. As a result of this lackluster shooting, the Pelicans were able to really load up on Shai's isolations, and it felt like OKC's best source of offense was for him to force the issue himself. Here's one that starts on an open side, and a double starts to come from the middle, but instead of giving up the ball, he attacks baseline and slithers his way into an open layup. And then in semi-transition, before the defense can properly set up, he's again gonna put his head down on a drive. Instead of getting slithery though, he gets cut off and uses strength to create separation for a finish. Shai ended the first with 9 points on 67% shooting, an awesome start, yet OKC's offense was producing atrocious numbers as a result of everyone else on the floor failing to convert. Thankfully, they were able to fall back on a great defense with some help from the Pelicans' own lack of outside shooting. The Pels hit just 1 of their 8 threes in the first, most of which were high quality, and that really shrunk the floor for a creator like Brandon Ingram. OKC gave Dort the Ingram assignment and trusted him to play it straight up, with the lower body strength and agility to force him into some really tough looks. And when Dort checked out, it was Kenrich Williams who replicated virtually the exact same thing, not letting Ingram see even an inch of daylight and forcing the possession to end in a long 2 at the end of the clock. As an absurd difficult shot maker, sometimes you just have to live with Ingram getting a bucket or 2 in tight coverage, but the way they played him is about as good as it gets, and this diet of shots is not sustainable. As for the rest of the team, they placed a lot of emphasis on not over-helping. As Alvarado tries to take Shai one-on-one, they again leave it in single coverage, and a lack of scoring from both teams led to an uninspiring tie game at 17 through the first 12 minutes. Without Shai to start the second, this is when Jalen Williams gets to run the offense, and he opens up with a quick mid-range jumper. But actually, this stretch was all about the Pelicans. CJ McCollum responds with a pull-up midi of his own, then on the very next possession, he isolates again and gets to a similar shot, misses, only for Valanciunas to grab a second chance opportunity before kicking it out to Trey Murphy for an open 3. This was the story for most of the game. New Orleans wasn't knocking down many shots, but they dominated the possession game with offensive rebound after offensive rebound. This time Murphy catches and attacks a closeout, only to run into the elite rim protector that is Chet Holmgren. A possession later, Murphy's again gonna try attacking the basket, working his way in close for a short floater, and he fails to convert, resulting in yet another offensive rebound for Jonas. He patiently waits for a chance to kick it out, and it gets swung back to who else but Murphy for his second three of the quarter. Winning the possession game is a great way to set yourself up for success, because as soon as those shots do start falling, it's hard to keep up, and CJ hits a 3 to give them a 7-point lead. OKC responded with some big plays in the open floor. You have Chet pushing pace and kicking it out to Wiggins, who attacks a closeout himself before laying it back down to the big man for an easy 2 at the cup. And just a play later, it's J-Dub who's initiating in transition. He drives right down the middle, draws contact, and finishes through it for a chance at 3. From that point, it was right back to that constant state of back and forth. You've got a Najee Marshall 3. On the other end, that 3 gets matched with a long-range jumper from Aaron Wiggins, then some more lackluster rebounding from the Thunder as Marshall flies in for a putback dunk, and finally J-Dub doing what he does best with a drive, stopping on a dime and pulling up for a mid-range J. All tied up at 33, 5 minutes to go, the Pels call a timeout, which brings most of the starters back in the game. It was during this time that Chet started to completely take over the game on the defensive end. You've got Ingram doing his one-on-one with Dort, and it's only when he starts to pressure the rim that Chet comes over to help and volleyball spikes away a layup. Just as a reference, here's what it looked like when Chet was actually matched up with Ingram. He's spaced to the corner and unable to commit to the rim, a massive difference in resistance. Of course, his bread and butter as a defender is executing drop coverage. When Ingram turns the corner, he's looking to get to the mid-range, and Chet makes sure to step up just high enough to let J-Dub recover and get a good contest, although they continue to struggle closing these possessions. Still, Ingram couldn't get a clean look all night. When it wasn't one of OKC's many wings smothering him in isolation, it was Chet with perfect positioning against pick and roll and a recovery to force a really tough look. On the other side of things, after watching Shea go off in the first, the Pelicans made sure to send everybody at him in the second. Help from in front, getting blocked from behind, they sent the house, which means that it was on OKC supporting guys to start making plays offensively. You've got a great drive and finish from Isaiah Joe. In the closing seconds, it was another high-paced drive and kick from Chet, this time into the hands of Cason Wallace for a 3, and that takes us to the last Pelicans possession of the quarter, where Jonas hits the ever-so-rare spot-up midi to tie it up at 43. Through 24 minutes, it was a complete stalemate, both quarters producing an even score. Quarter number 3 was all about the duo of J-Dub and Shea. On this one, Jalen hunts for a switch onto a smaller player and uses the size advantage to get to a mid-range jumper. Then a minute later, he again switch hunts, this time to get a big on him, and he creates space with a step back before pulling up for a 3. Next play starts in transition, ball in the hands of Shea, and he drives his way in close for a soft touch floater. Then on the defensive end, McCollum gets called for an illegal screen, and all of a sudden the crowd is getting into it. Their run is far from over though. This one again starts with a drive from Shea, and the defense collapses, so he kicks it out to Chet, leaving him with an angle to attack before turning around for a mid-range jumper. To avoid those advantages, Shea's next isolation gets left in single coverage, and against the smaller CJ, he's able to easily get to one of his step-back J's. While all of that's going down, you still have a masterclass in rim protection from Chet. He continues to execute drop coverage to near perfection, this time deterring Ingram's attack, which results in a turnover. Next time down, Ingram tries an isolation, again going at the rim, and there just wasn't anything going for New Orleans down low. Stops like these of course lead to runouts, which means more easy offense for the Thunder, and this time it's Giddey who takes advantage to put them up 9. They probably could have run away with the game here, if it weren't for the play of Trey Murphy. Without Zion, they needed him to take on a bigger offensive load, and he more than delivered. Most of his time is spent off ball, like here, he's spotted up deep on the wing while CJ runs pick and roll, and when his man helps, he's left with room to catch and shoot. And while we're talking about CJ, his shot creation was absolutely vital. The ability to run pick and roll and get into the defense without making errors can go a long way in these more defensive-minded matchups. Of course, Ingram can initiate these pick and rolls as well, and it's the same thing from Trey, spotted up deep on the wing and ready to punish any sort of help. This next play actually starts with a set action for Trey, 2 pin downs to curl him towards the ball, and he makes a great read to cut in between them for an easy catch and finish. And he wasn't only impacting the game on offense. On this one, he gets switched on to J-Dub, who turns the corner on a drive before making a great play at the rim. Around this time, we started to get some more back and forth. Whenever Shea gets a smaller player on him, he's getting to his spots in isolation, and the Pels continue to go to that high pick and roll with CJ. Like clockwork, he gets into the defense, kicks it out to a shooter, and we're right back to a 1-point game. The Thunder wouldn't let their foot off the gas though. Anytime they had an opportunity to get out in transition, they took advantage, and the duo of J-Dub and Shea just continued to put relentless pressure on the rim, combining for 19 points in the quarter. In the final seconds, Hayward blocks a floater, which leads to another fast break. J-Dub drives middle, collapsing the defense, before hitting Isaiah Joe in the corner, who hits a massive 3 to extend the lead to 6. Finally, the stalemate was broken, and the Thunder have a decent advantage heading into the final 12. That momentum carried right into the fourth. J-Dub and Chet set up the pick and pop, and this time the big man knocks it down to put them up 10. Just when things started to look good, here came the Pels storming back though. Not only did they start to knock down some big time shots, they brought really aggressive ball pressure and intensity on the defensive end to force tough decisions. Like this drive from Shea is completely smothered, and the only angle he has to finish is impossibly difficult. Then McCollum comes down with a transition 3, and a 7-0 run brings it back to a 1-possession game. The biggest problem in this quarter for OKC though was again the offensive rebounding. Great defense to force an end of clock shot, and they just can't close on the glass. Here's a great example of what I'm talking about. Dort is all over Ingram at the point of attack, doing everything to make his life difficult, only for the ball to get tipped back out for a second chance. Then it's CJ's turn to attack, and he works his way to the mid-range for a jumper. During this time, Shea couldn't really get anything going. Instead of relentlessly attacking, he started to settle for looks from outside, and that's because whenever he did drive, not only did the defense load up, the length of those wing defenders made all the difference. Just look at this one, not even an inch of daylight as he attacks a closeout. One defender in front of him, one trying to recover from behind, and a third at the nail taking an aggressive swipe at the ball to force a turnover. That results in transition offense for the Pels, and seemingly out of nowhere, they've actually stolen the lead. But I want you to pay close attention to the score real quick, 90-88, because these hoops are about to get nasty. Bad shots, careless mistakes, bodies diving all over the floor and deflecting passes in every direction. Then when some offense finally organizes and it looks like they're about to score, here comes Chet for one of his 5 blocks. Both defenses were more than locked in. Dort remains a perfect pest for every attempt from Ingram to score, and for OKC, it was a drought of more than 5 minutes without a single basket. That's when Shea took matters into his own hands, isolating against one of the league's best defensive players and getting to an automatic jumper. Tie game, 90 seconds to go, New Orleans sets up their high pick and roll. Chet comes up to the level, so Nance catches it with a 4-on-3, and he makes the right pass to Herb Jones. This is the shot they want 10 out of 10 times, and when he misses, of course Nance grabs a second chance. Once again, a shot you want 10 out of 10 times. CJ also fails to convert, and just look at the Thunder trying to close the possession. Eventually, they reset for another CJ pick and roll. Same exact thing with Nance in the short roll, only this time Herb cuts. Chet not only recovers to take that away, he takes away the paint completely. That was about 40 seconds of possession, so when OKC gets into their offense, we're really nearing the end. What else could it be if not a Shea isolation, attacking the middle, fighting through contact, and throwing up a floater for 2 plus a foul. After a quick bucket and a take foul, we arrive at a 2-point game in the final seconds. CJ's got a chance to win, steps into a decent look from 3, and just puts a little bit too much power on it. The Thunder escape game 1 with a win. There were multiple things that stood out in this performance, like how they couldn't get the 3-ball going in the first half and found ways to score regardless, how physical defense from the wings and rim protection from Chet helped hold Ingram to just 5 of 17 shooting, how they gave up a staggering 18 offensive rebounds and should probably make every adjustment possible to make sure that never happens again, but most importantly, how when the chips were down in a game starved of offense, both Shea and J-Dub made crucial plays to give their team the slightest edge. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you thought of this game. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.